Daenerys Stormborn of the House Targaryen, first of her name, the Unburnt, Queen of the Andals and the First Men, Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, Breaker of Chains, and Mother of Dragons.
Titles.
Or, to be put simply, Dany of Game of Thrones is a character all her own. First season Dany is starkly different from season 7 and 8 Dany. We first see Dany as nothing more than a pawn in a game of power plays between her brother and Khal Drogo. She starts with zero autonomy over her life and story to an ultimate end that seems only fitting for a true Targaryen. Dany's demise in season 8 was met with much hate by viewers and long-standing fans. Dany falling into the same trap of her ancestors was not what people thought they were going to see, nor did it feel fitting for a character that from season 1 we were all cheering on and vying for her success. But what Dany's story teaches us is how close and blurred the lines of a hero and villain can become. For this video, I will only be focusing on the TV series, not the books, as many things and characters differ, and not everyone has read both the books and watched the series. But we're still going to have a fun conversation, so click that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps get this out to others, and if you think you've already subscribed, double check. Sometimes you can get unsubscribed from a channel without knowing it. For much of the series, Dany is portrayed as a hero, whose origin story we get to watch in full detail. From her being sold to the Khal, losing him and her child, becoming the Unburnt, she embarks on a long and harrowing journey, losing loved ones, having her children stolen from her, and by far the most badass scene, her liberation of the Unsullied. But let's not get it twisted.
Don't get it twisted.
Dany is brutal. Her brutality in the first couple seasons is masked by the justification for her actions.
Where are my dragons?
Is a great example. These are her children that are stolen from her, and her brutal treatment of those that wronged her and them was burning and trapping people alive. But as the audience, we were not seeing these as brutal as they were because we were on Dany's side, and we see some justification for her actions. When the Unsullied killed their masters and the city of Astapor is burned thanks to Drogon, this moment is not looked at as Dany being brutal, but a liberator. She sees what the Unsullied have had to endure, and like herself, she wants to give slaves autonomy and freedom, which is why the Unsullied give her their support, because in their view, she is a hero, deserving of their strength. The Battle of Yunkai was swift because the slaves were the ones keeping the masters safe. This was another brutal moment for Dany. But again, it was because of the existence and presence of slaves that made this look and feel more justified, despite the brutality. Having the backing of more and more free people, along with the strength of the Unsullied, made Dany a rightful ruler. It's that righteousness and strength of the Unsullied and their ability to connect with the other slaves of Slavers Bay and Meereen that inspires those slaves to rise up and defy their masters, with again, more disenfranchised people and slaves finding their strength and courage, all thanks to their liberator, Dany. To the slaves, the Unsullied, and the liberated masses, Dany is a hero. She is the breaker of their chains, setting them free when all they have known is a life of slavery and subjugation. Dany's brutality sets them free, and so once again, it's looked at as more of a heroic move. To the masters, however, of Astapor, Yunkai, and Meereen, Dany is a tyrant, bringing her own progressive ideals into a culture and way of life that knows only what it knows, using the bodies of those less fortunate than yourself to enrich yours and your family's lives. To the families that were the masters, Dany is a villain. We see a glimpse of this reality in Meereen before her departure when she is deciding on marrying Lorak in order to earn favor amongst the remaining ruling class in Meereen. The cracks in Dany's capabilities to rule become clear in season 5 and 6, where there are no more battles to fight, but people to rule, civil unrest to quell, and a city to protect and serve. But up until this point, all Dany has had to do is conquer. Conquering and ruling, however, are very different, and it is here, at this point in the series, that we see those cracks begin. Dany becomes irritated with the realities of ruling, putting the wrong people in charge, and not focusing on the important things, which is the people she liberated, who put their trust and faith in her, that she squanders and misuses to their detriment, and to whom she completely abandons in order to take a throne that in her head she believes is rightfully hers. All that propaganda sold to her and her brother from Illyrio, saying the people of Westeros are waving the Targaryen flags, wanting their rightful heir on the throne, came back up to the surface as she begins to lose herself and her true purpose, which is something she is reminded of by Varys. imploring her to take heed when it comes to Westeros, King's Landing, and of course, Cersei, because it's about the people in his eyes. Dany's obsession for the Iron Throne seems to be rekindled when she starts to lose more. Her ability to control Meereen, her dragons, having to let Jorah go. All these events start to make her become untethered, and when we are untethered, we grab to the familiar. And that familiar to Dany is the want to go home. To Westeros, to be in a place where her ancestors walked and where she believes her rightful place is. But all of that clouds her to the realities that she herself decided to become a liberator, garnering support from the lay people, the downtrodden, the enslaved. When she was liberating Slaver's Bay, while the desire for the Iron Throne and crossing the sea was the incentive to keep going, there is no denying that she was also passionate about saving others. But the Iron Throne is not about others, it's about oneself, the perfect object encapsulating the selfishness and narcissistic tendencies that lend to the desire to sit upon it. Dany leaving Meereen and Slaver's Bay was the beginning of the end for Dany. This was the moment that her story, her actions, and her future shifted from a service to others to a service of self. She didn't have to go to Westeros, where she was not wanted and where the current ruling family had put forth every effort to take her out. She did not have to abandon the slaves she liberated, that upon her departure, and especially her death, would have been slapped back into slavery and death likely harsher than before. Dany abandoned the very people that were the reason for her success, her spot on the throne in Meereen, and the bloodshed to get her there. She went from a hero to a villain, likely only teaching the slaves that they will never win. A truly horrible and depressing future for a previously short time liberated people. Dany's hubris, inexperience, and victimhood is what makes much of season 7 and 8 a difficult watch, because so much of what she is lacking in experience is what she faces. She doesn't know or understand Cersei and all the things she will do to maintain power. She doesn't understand Westeros. She takes a people across the water that have never done so. She thinks her dragons are impervious because up to this point, by most accounts, Dany has won. But losing one dragon after another, having to be diplomatic and reserved, none of these things come easily to Dany. There's also the mental aspect. She's alone, the product of generations of incestuous relations in a land where people do not, in fact, want her around. Leaders and prominent personnel that she doesn't trust or fully believe, that also don't trust and or fully believe her, amping up those feelings of abandonment and loneliness.
A guardian, alone in the world. It's a terrible thing.
And on top of that is Dany feeling only like muscle because she has a couple dragons that are really the only reason why Jon is trying so hard to get her on his side so they can defeat the Night King, which they can't do without dragons. The mental fuckery going on in the background for Dany is heavy. That heaviness, the mind games, the trauma of her own life along with each of her ancestors as she edges closer and closer to Westeros and King's Landing. Dany is also very insulated in herself and her own trauma, acting as if she had it the worst. It's hard to not get a little perturbed during this scene, knowing what we know of Jon, Sansa, Arya, Bran, and all of the people of Westeros that have dealt with so much trauma and abuse, yet she acts like she has the monopoly on pain and trauma.
I have been sold like a brood mare. I've been shamed and betrayed, raped and defiled. Do you know what kept me standing through all those years in exile? Faith. Not in any gods. Not in myths and legends. In myself.
Dany loses much in the wake of the battle against the Night King, a dragon she sees and feels to be her child, Jorah, the last person from her first cohort of followers, and then she loses a second dragon to Cersei. In the wake of all this loss, it's visible in Dany's demeanor and posture that she's going through it. The creators make a point in both season 7 and 8 to really put on display the mental shift and break that is going on in Dany's head. From her attire, moments of staring off into the distance, lacking empathy and understanding for those at her mercy, threatening the entire northern people to Jon's face.
They will if their king does. It chose you to lead them. It chose you to protect them. Isn't their survival more important than your pride?
With all of that in context, knowing all that she has lost and seeing her approach the Red Keep and King's Landing, seeing it as the source of all that hurt and trauma, it's no wonder that the bells got to her. It's a heart-wrenching scene, seeing how it's all ringing in her ears, blinding her, enraging her, the swelling up of generations of pain coming to the surface. And so she does what many Targaryens did before her. She unleashes fire and flame on an entire city. not directly killing her actual adversary with her own bare hands, but killing the people, the civilians, and the very soil she wanted so desperately to have. What Dany does to King's Landing cements her place as a villain. Every survivor will not look at her as some liberator that set them free, but a master raining hellfire down upon innocence with no autonomy. Dany did to others what was done to her. She destroyed families, lives, and ways of life. She burned a city to the ground and has no remorse at the end. It's like the bells, instead of bringing her home, brought out the last throne-ending flame. Dany lost herself, her mission, and her purpose. She became the very villain she said she was saving others from. While many found Dany's trajectory and ultimate demise unsatisfying and a letdown to the character arc, I actually found it very real. While the many fanciful elements of Game of Thrones, like the dragons, magic, the children of the forest, and the walkers are not very relatable, the power plays, the politics, and war games are all very real and prescient. I think Dany's character and story is a parallel to our world today. We live in a world filled with intricate problems and unique dynamics, with world leaders all vying for a spot on that metaphorical throne we call global power. And in every country, the people are trying to find not only their voice and collective strength, but also that leader, that symbol of that connectedness, and someone to put our backing behind. The best example of this would be politicians and Hollywood celebrities. Politicians and political games of late have shown how much the people are looking for someone to follow and put their faith behind, but we continue to be let down by so many in so many ways. Many politicians vying for power or who already had power failed in many, many ways to bring about the changes they platformed themselves on, sending money to foreign war campaigns that are killing innocent lives every single day. It might not be dragons raining down hellfire, but it's a hellfire nonetheless that many of these politicians are either directly responsible for or by proxy because of how they vote or not. Many politicians, as they get closer and closer to that power position, begin to lose themselves in the connection to those that put them there. Self-serving politicians not even trying to hide it anymore, because that's how much of a game so much of this is. It's not about helping people rise from the ashes of financial turmoil, climate collapse, and disasters, or averting World War III. It's about their own self-interests. Our politicians that have looked like heroes are actually turning into the villains they said they would be better than. The same can be said for celebrities, whose adoration and isolation from the public inflates their already inflated egos, giving them complexes that are unmatched in their belief of being above others. Something that gets darker and more sinister as we see more details coming out every week on how Hollywood, stardom, and how success is really made. We are only at the start of seeing the level of depravity and sickness engulfing Hollywood. As more details continue to emerge, the mindfuck that will ensue as beloved actors that so many of us grew up watching and admiring are disclosed with their sick tendencies and willingness to join the status quo because they want fame no matter what. We might not have dragons and magic, but the using of bodies of those less fortunate to enrich your own life is a long-standing tradition and common thing found in Hollywood, politics, most corporations, and many other places. Keep your eyes open. You'll see it. There is a reason so many redeeming the villain stories are popular and common. By giving villains origin stories and deeper levels to connect with the audience that tug on our sympathy, it's a way to have us connect with these villains and in some ways justify their behavior. The reason for so many redeemed the villain stories is to, I believe, prep the people for the inevitable disclosure that will happen, and using redeemed villains as a way to pacify people's disgust and give excuses and justifications for truly horrible acts. From politicians to celebrities, billionaires and legacy families, the balancing act on the line between hero and villain is going to tip. Our world leaders, favorite celebrities, genius inventors, prominent authors, billionaires that so many believe to be like gods have had their moments of looking like heroes willing to stand up and help those less fortunate. But as is tradition in our world, it's a smokescreen. It's a cover to hide their true nature, true purpose, and their true goals. Be skeptical of those vying for power and prominence, especially when they are trying to cover up and rewrite their past or current story. While we can acknowledge that ruling and leading people is always going to have its moments of turmoil and possible destruction, I think it's important to remember what the true incentives are for those actions. Coming back to Dany, as I said, we were able to justify much of her actions in the early seasons because of the incentive for her actions. Her actions were all brutal. Let's not gloss over that. But they did have deeper reasons behind them. They were not all self-serving incentives. It was more of her desire to free people and liberating those that have known only slavery. She wanted to break the wheel, which is admirable. But you must also understand how the wheel works and turns and be ready to have an alternative to put in its place. Many will always find Dany to be a hero, excusing her actions away and justifying the destruction. And there will be others that will be forever changed by her actions and failures, like her failure to stay in Marine and keep the slaves free, her failure to find compromise, willing to work with others and taking things slower and more methodically, never forgetting the true destruction and devastation she brought upon innocent people. Trauma and violence inflicted upon us can explain and justify our mental states and some reactions to people and incidences. However, our traumas cannot be the reason or justification for purposely hurting others. Those are decisions made that one must suffer the consequences for. We can love someone but not justify their heinous acts towards other people. There are also a lot of fans that hate that Jon was the one to take Dany out. They hated everything about the storyline and didn't understand it. But I think it actually all makes sense when you really think about it. Dany threatened Jon, his family, and the entire northern people before she even helped take out the Night King. Jon saw her true nature. Ned taught him and all the Stark children the importance of the man who passes the sentence should swing the sword. Both Jon and Tyrion have witnessed Dany being absolutely brutal, not allowing those she kills to have final words or having any empathy towards the people she is about to take out. And on top of that, she doesn't get her hands dirty. Up to this point, Dany has used other people, her dragons, or fire for which she is impervious to take lives. She's never had to pick up a sword and use it for her own defense or to take a life. It isn't until the battle with the Night King, when all hope is about to be lost, where Dany is finally confronted with her own mortality and having to stand on her own 2 feet, fighting side by side with Jorah. And it's obvious here that she is weak, scared, and untrained. She struggles to hold a sword. She can barely keep herself safe, and that contributes to Jorah's death. Dany, even though she is a queen, is not a leader when it comes to the battlefield, nor is she a leader that's willing to get her hands dirty and see that brutality firsthand. This is why Jon had to take out Dany. What else was he to do? She became unreachable and uncontrollable. He killed someone he loved by his own hand, knowing that he was doing it for the realm, the people, and his family, because he saw the destruction of an unbridled Dany and the fire that would likely consume their world if she was not taken out. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit that like button and also let me know your thoughts and comments down below. If you want some more Game of Thrones commentary, check out this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share with others. As always, stay safe, take care, and be kind to each other.
People learn to love their chains.